Boom, we're live. Welcome to episode 57 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. Now today, I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic. It's one I was first exposed to back at university, and this is, although kind of introductory, surface level stuff. At the time, I was training people. I just finished my PT certificate. Primarily, I thought, right, I'm going to just do a few classes or as a way to get money while I was in university, because I wasn't really good at. Tried waiting in the past, serving drinks. It's actually a funny story before we get into it. One of the worst career highlights of my career was when I was waiting tables. I'm a bit of a bluffer. To get into waited tables, I kind of just lied and said I had a few weeks experience, because nobody hires you without experience, which is it's a bit ironic that you need to get experience, but nobody hires you without experience. So there's 2 points to this. First of all, I was waiting tables, and I obviously didn't have the technique of carrying the tray of drinks, which it still baffles me today how but men half my size could carry more drinks. But anyway, there was 3 pitchers, jugs of beer, 2 or 3, and I was bringing it out to a table of 10 or 12. It's a big table anyway. And as I took one of the jugs off the tray and leaned over to put it on the table, the other jug, it was 2 jugs. So the other jug that was on the tray tipped on someone's head, and it was a birthday party, and I literally poured a jug of beer over someone. And I went straight into fight or flight. I didn't know whether to just run away and never got back to that job again. Thankfully I was outside and my boss didn't see it. And the guy, man, if I could meet him today again, he was the nicest guy ever. He said, don't even worry about it, I'll go get a change of clothes. So if by chance you are listening, thank you for the way you reacted to that. And the other worst experience, again, kind of bluffed my way in to get a bar job. This is one of the kind of advantages of coming from Ireland. I said, yeah, I had a few years experience in Ireland. Put one of my best mates down as a reference. And when I got in here, little did I know it's all different drinks, and we don't have schooners in Ireland. So they gave me an hour or two trial at the bar, and people asked me for VB and 2's new, which I've never heard anything before. So I never knew how to pour a schooner before in my life. So yeah, suffice to say, they asked me to leave after about half an hour. But funny looking back now. So that wasn't working out. So I thought, you know what, let me work in a gym. I'm always here anyway, and that will get me by university. But as I started to train people, I started getting into it, and a lot of the things we were learning at university were very applicable to the people I'm talking to. These people are complaining about lack of motivation, and I'm learning about theories of motivation, behavior change. These people are struggling with behavior. So although it didn't click as much at the time, I knew, wow, this has so much reference for personal training, fat loss and health, but nobody's really talking about it. So it was kind of bewildering at the time. Anyway, roundabout way, we'll come back to today, and this stuff it's getting more prevalent, but especially in my own practice is more prevalent than ever. And I'm going to explain how I use it to help coach people. And if you're a personal trainer, listen, you can use it to help coach other people. Or if you're on your own journey, this will help you increase your likelihood of success. And the topic we're going to talk about is self-efficacy. And in basic terms, it's the belief you have in your ability to do something. So if it's playing basketball, okay, I know my self-efficacy is going to be low from playing against NBA players or good level players that are twice the size as me. However, if in terms of Gaelic football, something I'm more competent in, I'm going to have a higher self-efficacy. You could look at this in terms of subjects you're good at school. I actually always liked languages, so I had a high self-efficacy for German. Learned German at the time. But in terms of, let's say, higher level maths, I had a lower self-efficacy. So you get the point. Now, what we're going to obviously talk about in terms of fat loss is self-efficacy. How is your belief that you can succeed? So it's probably something you've never even thought about in depth, but it plays such a major role in the concept of you succeeding, but also in the concept of motivation. Obviously, like I've said, everyone complains, I'm not motivated, this, that, and we've kind of established one of the reasons for motivation is that short term, just to give you a kick in the ass to do something, but it's still around, obviously, in our behavioural journey. And in terms of self-efficacy, why the reason it's so important comes back to that old adage. I think it was Henry Ford said it. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. So if you don't believe you can successfully lose fat and keep it off forever, how do you think you're going to be able to do it? And this is not just like we will believe, achieve, succeed, that kind of like self-help type book. This is tied in to actual science in everything else in the whole scope that we will look at. I'm going to talk about how to tie it in to training, nutrition, and what we can take from this to increase your likelihood of success through increasing your belief that you can do it. Now, it's a concept proposed by psychologist Albert Bandura. And again, people are more likely to engage in concepts that they have a high level of self-efficacy, which again makes sense. In terms of training, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, if I tell someone, if someone's a complete gym newbie and I set themselves the goal of going into the weight room at peak time, they're going to have a low self-efficacy, so they're going to have a low motivation to go and do it, purely because they have a low competence as well in that. Versus if I tell someone, can you just walk around your block or get some steps in, they're going to be more competent in walking. We've been doing it a long time, which means you're going to have a higher level of self-efficacy, so which means you're going to have a higher level of success in the activity which you are more competent in. And again, this relates back to one of the models we're going to talk about, self-efficacy model of motivation. And there's 4 areas within this that affect our self-efficacy. Self-efficacy. I always have trouble saying that. That's why I say it real quick, so you probably don't notice. There's 4 things in it. Now, the first one is obviously our performance accomplishment, i.e. how well we do in it, and this also relates to our past experiences. Now, in terms of fat loss, this is very, very, very significant, because the majority of people, especially the ones I see, for numerous reasons, have bad past experiences in losing fat. They could have gone on drastic diets, they could have followed sustainable plans, bad advice, etc., etc. So it's a very hard field to navigate, which is why I don't blame people for having bad past experience, because it's very hard. Lucky you came across this podcast, and you are just a drop in the ocean of all the information out there. But as we will also talk about, by increasing our performance and our habits and behaviors, we can actually change that, and we can start to increase our own self-efficacy, which in turn start to gain momentum, start to believe that we can do it, and then that relates to a higher level, that will relate to how competent we are doing these habits, etc., etc., and that builds on, so that creates it that way. But it's just as important that if somebody has bad experiences in losing fat before, they've gained it back, or again, they could have gone any crazy diet, bad experience of that, and gained the weight, lost and gained the weight back, it becomes even more important to understand this concept, because if you go and start to lose fat again and do it the wrong way, well then what are you doing? Well, what we're doing is reinforcing that negative association with fat loss, reinforcing the belief that we can't do it. And obviously the more times we do this, it makes sense that we're just reinforcing that belief that we'll never lose fat. And again, if you think that way, you're never going to be able to persevere through the hardship to be able to get to the other side. The other 3 ways that relate into that, which again we'll talk about a bit more, we'll just name them out first. Vicarious learning, which means you can learn from others. You can see other people do it, whether it's role models, whether it's coach, whether it's just learning about fat loss. Again, we've talked about before, where the start of the behavioral change journey will be not just getting into it straight away. It might just be learning about it. So if you're going to try change your nutrition, you might just start with the learning aspect, learning about macros, learning about calories, learning about protein, instead of just blindly following something. You learn the guidelines first. Again, that will relate into the skills you're going to develop and carry out with your behaviors. Then we have verbal or social encouragement, which you can kind of get. Imagine you don't feel like you have good ability in something, and then you have people saying, no, you are good, you can do this. And again, it's not a false sense of belief, it's just it has to be warranted, obviously. But if you had bad past experience, you're probably going to have, again, low level of belief. So you may need this verbal encouragement coming from coaches, coming from a social circle, which again we'll elaborate on. And then the last one is obviously your emotional state in regards to self-efficacy. If you just feel like dread and stress around fat loss, well, obviously your belief in your ability is going to be lower as well. So all these things tie in. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to structure a plan, taking these things into account, to build a belief which will then help build these habits, stick with them for long enough to be able to become conscious, and then we can then slowly pick another habit and do the same until we've created a completely different lifestyle, and thus the byproduct that will be change in our body in itself. So again, the most important one within this will be our past experiences, our performance within it. So how we've remembered we've done in that before. So again, if I think of maths, if all the years previous I've failed every year, my self-belief, my ability is going to be very low. Versus something I'm confident in. If it was German, again, example, use a school. If I'm getting A's every year, I don't think I got A's, I got B's, I think. But my belief in my ability is going to be higher. So when that German class gets a bit hard, I go, no, I've done this before, I do it, and I can persevere and get a little bit harder. So we have established that every time you fail, your belief goes down, that you can do it, your belief in your ability. So this relates back to firstly understanding, I did 2 previous episodes to this, to the common mistakes people make. So if you haven't, obviously go listen to that, because you have to avoid making these common mistakes. That's the first thing. Example, setting too many goals. You might have too drastic, unsustainable diets, etc. And this is where the psychology of behavior change becomes so important, as well as using what we'll call a client-centered approach around coaching, which is setting the person up to succeed rather than failure. So if someone has a low level of belief in their ability, what would be best to do first would start to get them feeling like they're succeeding. Now the problem is, someone's a very newbie into fat loss. What they're doing is they're using this, they might use the scale weight as giving them whether they're succeeding or failing. And like we've talked about before, people may not be in a position currently, if they're beginning, to just focus on the outcome, because the process is all over the shop. So they don't have the habits and behaviors to be able to give them the outcome that they want. So that comes back to then, We want them to succeed, but we need to change the way they're judging success. So an easy example, we might get someone's nutrition and say, for example, they're eating 3 meals a day. And Dr. Melissa Davis talks about this, who I've had on the show, so go back and listen to that episode. Say they're eating 3 meals per day and they're not getting protein every one. Excuse me. And we know higher protein is going to help someone keep satiated, which is again going to lower the calorie intake, which is where we have the goal of then them losing weight because they can stick in a calorie deficit. Well, if that person who's not eating any protein each meal simply starts to focus on a scale weight, they're probably going to get anywhere because they're probably going to fill themselves up on high calorie palatable foods, overeat, they're not in a calorie deficit, and they're going to gain weight, which again is going to stuff up they'll probably just give up when they see that. So what we could do is we could set them the goal and judge success by giving them a protein target within the meal. So say, for example, I want you to get 2 out of 3 of your meals to contain some source of protein. So we're starting very small, and like I've always referenced before, that book Tiny Habits, where you set yourself the smallest possible habit within that behavior. That's going to increase your likelihood of success, and when you start to do that, you start to succeed, get that flood of dopamine that's going to positively reinforce doing the habit, and then you can build on it. Within this, I mentioned the client-centered approach. What I would do if I'm coaching someone was, when I suggest a small habit change, I'm going to look for their feedback. I might look and if they give me any unconscious kind of feedback within the body language that tells me they're not confident doing that, or I might also ask them and say, are you confident doing this? How realistic is this to do this habit? And I'm kind of looking for like a 7 or above out of 10. You go, yeah, that's easy, I can do that, no problem, perfect, that's probably a suitable goal for you, versus saying, oh, I'm not sure, I'll give it a crack. Again, if someone's had bad experience and we give them something that's kind of a bit unachievable in regards to goal setting, well, then we're setting them up for failure and setting them up to not lose fat and then give up. So set the smallest possible habit that you feel confident in. Within this, I know it's kind of like that Goldilocks thing where if it's too easy, it mightn't be challenging enough. So it has to be like, yeah, I can do that 9 out of 10 times, whatever it is. But it has to be realistic for that person to do. Ideally, they'll be like, yeah, I can do that, no problem. And normally, like, is that all you want me to do? I'm sure I can do more, like, especially when they come in motivated at the start, they want to try to do everything. I said, no, just do that. And then what normally follows is language such as, wow, I didn't think I could do that. I feel good. This is brilliant. I don't feel like I'm on a diet. These kind of words like that, and then we can build on that as we go. Constantly doing the same mistakes reinforce the belief you can't do it, as we said. So start with the smallest possible goal, and then build that momentum. Focus on the next thing. Focus on the next thing. Focus on the next thing. As I said, example with training. We might get a complete beginner. I'm going to use online because that is where half my business is, and it's where I see a lot of mistakes as well with coaching, because coaches think because it's online training, it's just spreadsheets and calories. Well, no, we're still dealing with people, and unless you're dealing with like bodybuilders who are just robots and have the habits in place to be able to do that, well, then it's a different story. You'll get someone, or I'll see somebody new sign up to, say, an online program who's just started their weight loss journey, let's say. Well, it started as in they've tried many times before and failed, blah, blah, blah. But started with an online trainer. What normally happens, they go, well, it's optimal to train 3 to 4 times a week in the gym, so I'm going to set you a 3 to 4 times a week gym program. Here you go, report back to me next week. We haven't even asked that person how competent they are in the gym. What I used to do when I worked in a commercial gym, when it was especially especially intimidating, especially at peak time, obviously, I would ask I could see from body language if I'm training like a beginner, I'll see they're not confident in the gym. And I would just tell them, look, okay, obviously it's easier with me when I'm going to train you. You're going to feel more confident because I'm there to make sure you can do it. But on the days where you're not training, what area of the gym do you feel most confident in to do your own training? It could just be in the corner, so I might just give them like a dumbbell workout where they just grab 2 dumbbells, go into the corner with a yoga mat, and then do the whole workout in there. As they get in the habit of doing that, they'll build up the confidence, and eventually they can end up in the weight room whenever, if they choose, if they please. Some cases they're like, Sean, I actually don't feel confident coming to the gym when you're not here. Okay, cool. Do you feel confident getting on the treadmill or the elliptical? Yeah, I can do that, no problem. Perfect, go on that. Some other cases like, no, I actually don't even want to come in here. I hate the gym. Perfect. I don't like coming on my own, blah, blah, blah. Oh, cool. Can you go and, let's say, do a Pilates or yoga class that the gym provides on other days? Yeah, no problem. I can do that. Again, we're going back even more. It could be a case that, would you do a yoga Pilates class? No, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I really don't. No problem. Let's regress even a bit more. Same exercise. Someone can't do something, regress the habit, regress the exercise. Do you feel confident simply just getting a walk in at lunchtime? Yes. Perfect. Stick to that. And then, as we said, we can progress someone. So someone who may start with steps on their lunch break may progress to like a yoga Pilates class, or a class where the person's doing it, so it's a bit easier to get motivated because they're there. Then it could progress to like you just using cardiovascular machines. Then it could progress to you just using the area of the gym that you feel confident in. Then it could progress that you just go into the weight room, you don't care, you have that competency. I know what I'm doing, my technique's good, etc., etc. And all this ties into motivation. So if the online trainer gives the brand new client 3 to 4 days a week gym program in the weight room, if their level of competency is low, it's going to tie into the level of obviously self-belief in that ability is going to be low. So their motivation is going to be low. Yeah? This means the likelihood of doing the fucking thing is going to be low. And that's what people fail to understand. So we're not understanding the client. We're not understanding where they're at when we're just giving them a plan, setting them up for failure because of what's optimal. It's not optimal. What the client can do is the most optimal thing. If I have a client that feels the most competent, I have a client, I can't wait to release her results soon, but she's still just getting lean, so we need to wait. Aoife, one of my clients who's a nurse, this is during lockdown, she's currently down about 15 kilos. But at the start, it was simply a case that I said, what are you confident in doing? She said, I like doing this YouTube yoga class every night. I says, perfect. How many days a week can you do it? She said, I'm happy to do it every day. No problem. So we've done that. We got 10 kilos off her simply from that. We had some nutritional changes, blah, blah, blah. Now we've progressed to doing 3 workouts. So she's like, I'm done with the yoga, I can progress to something harder. We do 3 workouts, and now she's starting to jog and walk outside. But if I told her to do it at the start, again, it's increasing the likelihood of failure. It's like someone who hasn't squatted before. We say, go in there, get 100 kilos in your back and start squatting. Well, they haven't even done a bodyweight squat, so we have to think of it the same way. Second bit, as I said, is vicarious learning, and it's just basically looking at other people carry out the same methods, learning from the right sources, gaining knowledge, developing skills. As I said, relates back to behavior change, when sometimes the starting thing is actually learn about the process, which again is why people carry out stupid drastic diets, because they don't learn about the guidelines of why fat loss happens and really gets a calorie deficit, the importance of protein, the importance of whole foods, fiber, etc., etc. So if you don't understand that, well, maybe that's your starting point as well. It's going to feed back into your ability, because the more you know, it doesn't mean you'll do it, but it's can increase your likelihood of doing it with all the other aspects we're going to talk about. as I coach people, I'll naturally bring them through the process. I'm not going to overload with information because it's going to be too much, but I'm going to give them some stuff, bring them through it, explain to them, they can rationalize it. Perfect example that always happens is Monday morning, I get clients, Sean, my weight's up 3 kilos from Friday. Why is this happening? I said, oh, well, on the weekend, we naturally eat a bit more carbohydrates. We probably don't train as much, so it's going to be a bit more stored glycogen and water. For every 1 gram of carbohydrates you eat, it's stored with around 3 to 4 grams of water. So a pizza could leave you 1 kilo heavier simply from you retaining a bit more water, but that doesn't mean you've gained any fat. You still could be leaner, as in you have lost fat, but you could be heavier on the scale simply from storing this glycogen and water in your muscles. If someone didn't understand that, what do you think is going to happen when Monday rolls around? They're going to go, fuck this, I'm after trying to stay on track all week, and now my weight's up. It's not even the same, it's up. I'm going to throw the scales out the window and I'm going to cancel that online subscription, and then I'm never going to try and lose fat again. That's what's going to happen. And I have to talk people off a ledge every Monday. Or in a lot of cases, again, you could say the same around the menstrual cycle. Weight goes up. It could be just getting people to understand the concept that, like I said, they can lose fat and still gain more water weight in the scales. They're not the same thing. Just because you have a meal off track or you go over your calories by a few hundred doesn't mean you're going to gain weight. It actually takes 3,500 calories over your maintenance calories to gain half a kilo of fat. In the same way, it takes 3,500 calories under your maintenance to lose half a kilo of fat. So if you have a few drinks and the scale's up and you go, oh my god, I've gained 2 kilos. You haven't. At worst, you might have gained 100, 200 grams, but you're probably still in a deficit. Again, look at the whole week, explain to them calories over the course of the week and all these things that the more they understand, the more they're going to persevere when these little, not even speed bumps because you're still on track, but all these things pop up which can potentially throw people off track. The third one is verbal encouragement, again, social persuasion. In regards coaching, it's like having a coach telling you can do it. If I coach someone and say, look, I've helped everyone that I've dealt with, and I'll guarantee with your money back that if you do everything I say and it doesn't work, you can have all your money back. Like, it's having that confidence in someone. When I coach people, I say, look, what's going to happen is you're paying me to worry about the results. I'm going to just give you the process to carry out, and we're going to work on that together, again, through that client-centered approach. And I'll guarantee you'll get results, but you just focus on this thing. And having that confidence, if someone has that confidence in me, that's going to increase their own self-efficacy in their ability that they can do it, because I've helped so many people and I'm going to help you, and again, I'm confident in the way I talk. It also relates back to having a good social support network around you, your family, your friends. It relates back to you telling these people why it's so important to you to lose fat. I know a lot of people, because they have probably failed so many times in the past, they don't want to tell them, look, I'm trying to lose weight again. They go, you fucking doing that again? I thought you were doing I thought you were keto a few weeks ago and doing vegan a few weeks ago. They're just people are embarrassed to tell, because again, they don't want to have that embarrassment around failing again. But when you're doing it the right way, I actively encourage people, my clients, to get these people on board, because like we've talked about before, that is your environment, not only from the encouraging factor, but your food environment, that they can help persuade that in a positive and negative way. Like the statistic I always talk about, if one partner becomes overweight, it's like 50-60% chance the other partner will become overweight. Same with friends. Your friend circle are probably going to mean the same thing as well. So yeah, make sure these people are helping you, not hindering. And it's interesting, group training when done well, and which is very rarely I see that in regards to exercise technique, programming, etc. Or even what I try to do is when I coach clients, either online or face to face. I try to get them to have some sort of community. It's one of the aspects where CrossFit and stuff do very well, and the reason being is this. I don't know if James Clear said this. He's the guy that wrote a book on atomic habits, or it was, I don't know who quoted this, but something along the lines of, if you want to reach a goal, or if you're trying to change your behavior, find a group where the desired behavior you're trying to change is the norm. And what this means, if you are trying to, let's say, track your calories, and you have a friend circle and everyone around you, nobody tracks the calories, and they look at you and go, what the fuck are you doing? And they put you on show every time you're trying to track your calories. Well, what's your likelihood of doing that? It's going to be very low. Versus you're trying to track your calories, and then now you're suddenly interacting with other people that track their calories, and you're like, oh, okay, this is normal. Again, relates back to obviously loads of different humanistic factors within that, groupthink, etc. But you're more likely to do that simply because that's a normal behavior within that. You're not going to be embarrassed to do it. So it's another thing to take into account. If we can find people, which is hard because everyone walks around with headphones and on social media all day and not actually actively engaging in the real world. But it may involve, if you have a trainer, talking to the other clients. I know my first gym where I worked at, I really tried, although my technical skills weren't that good, I really understood the power of a community. And it, again, coming from how CrossFit did very well, a lot of the time it's useless me saying stuff. I'm just repeating myself on a daily basis to clients. Well, what if actually my other client told one of my clients that fact? It's going to be taken up a bit more, or it's going to be reinforced that you may have to say it so many times for the person to actually think about it and start to engage in the habit. And it relates back to, I know I used to run 2 or 3 like group classes for all my coaching clients per week, and I would listen to the conversations after, and they would talk about the problems they were having, and you would hear, oh, I have that problem as well, or I'm trying to lean my recipes out, I don't know how to cook, oh, try this recipe, or I keep going over my calories, and then someone might say exactly something I've said, and they go, wow, that's a great idea, even though I'm fucking telling them that exact thing every day. And again, as the things I've said, the norm behavior, the behavior you're trying to change, if that's normal, then suddenly you can reinforce that a bit more. Because if you don't engage in that behavior, well, suddenly now you're the odd one out. Whereas before in your old group, you were the odd one out for trying to do it. So that is something to think about as well. And the last thing is physiological feedback. And if we kind of maybe have a sense of dread or stress around fat loss, it's obviously going to decrease our self-efficacy and belief that we can do it. But in my opinion, if we get the other aspects on board in regards to learning, in regards to support, maybe a coach, in regards following the right plan, we can improve this. That may just be like chicken and egg scenario, where that's just the dread is because you failed so many times before. When you actually start to succeed, that physiological feedback is going to be positive in regards, you're going to get the dopamine from hitting your goals, and that may improve in itself. But as I said, the most important factor will be your kind of past experience or the performance. So it's where I've talked about the tiny habits and creating momentum and setting realistic goals. That way would be probably the most significant thing in combination with the rest. And that is the end of notes. So yes, there we go. I hope that was useful. Let me know if that was. definitely just another way to kind of open your mind up to that. And I know light bulbs will be dinging in your head going, okay, that's why that didn't work before. That this is giving you the tools from a psychological perspective to interact with our training and nutrition. Normally, as I said, it's just calories and reps and sets, where this is looking at people on an individual level, why they fail and beliefs, and this ties back into motivation, was tied back into how likely you are to carry out the behavior you're trying to change, etc., etc. So it's that holistic view which we're always trying to look at, especially important, as I've said multiple times, if we have failed in the past. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed that episode and the ones previous, the only thing I'll ask you for ever is just to give a nice little review and rate it on iTunes. Unfortunately, as I've said, this information is not as prevalent. I want you to think about, if people could actually understand this concept alone, how powerful that would be to their own habit change, not in terms of fat loss, but everything in life in general. So that's what I want you to do as well. I'm also going to be posting the video of this episode on YouTube, so if you prefer to watch it that way, I know I do sometimes with some of the podcasts I listen to where it's video form. Again, relating back, I think it's just nice to look at, not me, but nice to look at people when they talk. I need to look at their mouth and move and all that kind of, again, humanistic side of being a human being, which you all are that are listening, I assume. So yeah, signing off. There you go. Episode 57 in the books. We're going to get some cool guests on for the next following few weeks. If you haven't already checked out, it's currently the middle of June. We are closing our coaching program on July 2nd. So if you'd like more information on that and you're on my Instagram, click the link on my bio, register. I'll send out all the details. Or you can email me at sean@livelongperformance.com to see how to apply. There you go, signing off, and I will see you all in the next episode.